therefore, we will have a descriptor for each interest point, and it will be in high dimensional space, and we want to then cluster them to come up with the words, and that will be our vocabulary. But the English language has vocabulary for thousands of years ago. But visual words, we don't have vocabulary, so we have to come up with our own vocabulary.
Yeah, to make the point.
Oh, okay. So we're called the Scandinavian Institute of Computational Vandalism, which one meaning of that, the CV is in part on computer vision. And as you just saw, that was a clip from a series of lectures published from the University of Central Florida, I believe it is, from a computer engineering course about computer vision. But it has another meaning. Is it?
Yes, the name of the institute is derived from a project from the painter Asger Jorn that started in the 60s, a sort of photographic survey of the arts of the Vandals. And the Vandals had a very particular characteristic, is that they didn't make art from a clean and empty surface, but they would draw upon already existing images. And so, for instance, the most earlier graffiti that we can find in art history come from the Vandals. And the idea of Jorn, while doing that, was to look for a culture where he could find a way to talk about images using images. And the different publications he made from this archive are what you can see here, a sort of long collections of images that are put next to each other and that are in dialogue. So here you can see a long series of images containing feet or foot. And here, one of his most well-known book, La langue crue et la cuite, where he gathered images from multiple sources and highlights. So it's not only a collection of images, but it's also a painterly intervention on these images to highlight the presence of tongue in surprising ways in the different pictures he has collected. So the presentation we will make is about this attempt to try to engage with in a dialogue with images, trying to find ways to not describe the images from the outside with words, with historiography, with textual description, but to try to see how we can make from the image to make emerge a way, a series of description that come from the image itself. And to do that, what we started a few years ago was to look with curiosity in what computer vision algorithms would offer us to do so. And one of our first let's say, experiment with that was to look on something called the surf features. Basically, surf features are elements in an image that remain stable even if this image is rotated, for instance. These are elements, many of you are familiar with it, but these are elements that are used, for instance, to create a panorama of different images and to stitch these images together. And we were interested not only in knowing about the existence of these elements, but also in looking into what they are and to sort of use the lens of the algorithm to discover new aspects of, within the images. So, for instance, what Michael is doing here is to scan through an image that order by size all the surf features discovered in an image. And of course, the more we go in the bigger details, we see what for the algorithm is important, is somehow what identifies this image proper. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. It's okay. Press the plus. Yeah. Maybe go a bit long. Yeah. So that's, for instance, this one. So, for instance, what we started to do then was to see how these little elements, these surf features, could how they could help to connect different images together. So, for instance, here are a feature taken from taken from one image and a feature taken from the other, and it's where the algorithm finds a sort of point that is extremely similar between the two images. And of course, it directs our look to completely different parts of the image than what we would do if we want to identify the content of this image, or if we want to somehow look at it spontaneously. So it really changes. It directs our look to a very different vocabulary to talk about the image, and a visual vocabulary to talk about it. Yeah, maybe you can show the network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So actually, indeed, as we started to work with, in this case, I started working with SIFT, which is indeed a sort of patent-encumbered, not completely free software algorithm for doing features as well, like surf. And actually just trying to get a grip on, indeed, what are these features. So this is an interface, actually. Well, actually, I quite like... Oh, I didn't pull that one open. So anyway, this is an interface that you can kind of scroll through a series of images, and looking at their features, you can place them back in their original position in the image, eventually kind of putting the image back to kind of see. But you can also sort of really literally take them apart, start to kind of consider what they are as elements, and eventually, for instance, features have a predominant direction in addition to a size. So you can, of course, like order them in a way by their kind of orientation, or look at the scale, and eventually, you know, consider the entire collection of images in this way, which is kind of a kind of collage, you know, method. When you start to see, also becomes this kind of very strange sort of chewing monster, but yeah. And I mean, indeed, it was just sort of playful, and it was an interesting link, let's say. I mean, continuously, I think we're interested in these kinds of links. Despite the quote we started from, you know, we're interested in actually how the history of kind of visual arts can talk to, let's say, computer vision of today. And so sort of, let's say, taking these tools and considering them actually sort of means of producing collage is very interesting. Not just in kind of simulating the surfaces of the past, but in a sense reinvestigating the materials of the past with kind of contemporary techniques and considering what that could mean. This?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, so this is an interface, sorry, well, we started actually then looking, we made a kind of interface where we wanted to look at actually images in their layers. So in some sense, actually inspired by a kind of GIMP or bitmap, let's say, kind of program, imagining where you could take images and look at, say, red channel, look at the gradients, look at the contours, switch off, actually, let's see. Actually, even in some cases apply text. Sorry, actually, that was not the same image, but consider actually as well what happens when you throw OCR software at it and look for text within an image. So just actually in a way trying to get a grip on this sort of, in fact when you start to take something as simple, let's say, as SIFT, which is not simple at all, in fact you come to a whole kind of layer cake. We talk about the princess and the pea of, there's an incredible stack of actually decisions and representations and algorithms that are involved in picking out a particular segment of an image and considering that a feature, for instance, to do with image gradients. And so we enjoyed this interface as a way to, let's say, look at an archive. So in this case, it's a kind of random walk through the archive where, based on each of the different based on each of the different filters, you have ways of ordering. Was it 5?
5, yeah.
Okay, just okay. And so this kind of walks through. Actually, what it does is here it builds up all the layers of a single image, then picks, in this case, SIFT features, and then it's moving through adjacent images based on probably, they're global properties in this case, like maybe total number of SIFT features, or total length of the contour, or total amount of textuality determined by using OCR. What's the OCR software? I can't. Okay, sorry, just Tesseract. Sorry,
Tesseract.
I wanted to say Tesseract.
Tesseract.
Yeah, and these are all indeed kinds of ways to, let's say, look at an archive in a different way. For instance, we were also actually using the same, I took it away, but for instance, simply tracing the algorithms. And we were going to mention this because it's actually, at the moment, this is on display at the Photographers Gallery here in London, a tracings installation where we just take the original photographs from Oscar Jorn's SICV, the old original comparative vandalisms photographs, and then just apply OpenCV contour detection, and then eventually you start to see the image trace. So it's just a way actually to look again at these images and kind of revalue them, reconsider them. And I think the last thing that we're going to show, or have I skipped something? The last thing that we did was an installation which was quite playful and I think looks nice to see, which was, we're both working in Constant, an office in Brussels. This is some test images. And in this case, what you have was an installation that ran for 40 days in the window of Constant, and basically doing face detection. Again, a very high level detection, a Haar cascade based on a training set of the default frontal face, probably the most popular kind of application of Haar cascade. And basically just detecting faces, first in live images, then replacing faces from other faces detected in an archive, in this case from a Norwegian graphic designer we work with as well, Gudjomsgaard is his name, who collects Oscar Jorn, so there's a sort of link in there. And we really liked, actually, this kind of, indeed, it's sort of great, and then it's all kind of facing outward, so people can actually look at the process of what's happening when it detects faces, finds faces in the archive, shows the original archive pictures with their faces, and replaces them, and produces these kinds of loops. Which I think is a kind of, indeed, a sort of playful way to make people look at actually the kinds of algorithms that, of course, increasingly people are familiar with face detection from their cameras. And I think we're good with 2 minutes. And actually, there's a particular moment that I quite like, and I thought that was a nice ending. Because, of course, part of this is, I think, a way to maybe ask questions about, increasingly we're in a situation where these techniques are often used for surveillance. I think it would be a great supercut to put all the kind of computer vision lectures that contextualize their work in terms of surveillance applications. And I think it's really an interesting question, how can you kind of empower people as well, to maybe engage with these, rather than just be scared about these technologies and feel kind of out of control of them, really take them on and consider what they are as materials. So in that sense, one of the last, the last image I'll show is just, which one was it? Yes, so this was indeed captured one night.